Hello and good morning. Happy Sunday to you all. I'm like 2 minutes late and I apologize because I got something completely unexpected work related came up this morning. And so for the last hour, I've been dealing with that. Literally just ended. So now I am here to go through the next chapters in the book of Genesis. And as a kind of special treat. No, I don't know if it's a special treat or not, but I'm actually going to start this in the books of prophecy that deal with the judgment of Edom. And then we're going to go back to Genesis and see why there is going to be judgment at all. Where did that originate? Because we're in those chapters in Genesis to see that. So what's pretty interesting here is that in the book of Isaiah, in chapter 63, we learn something interesting. That was the one place I didn't have already marked. Okay, so when Jesus returns at the second coming, where is he coming from? Edom. Before I go there, though, let's go to Revelation. There's a few different spots where I want to talk about this. Revelation 14 is the last place that we are introduced to this in the Bible. And then the Old Testament prophets, it shows us how that's going to occur. In Revelation 14 and Revelation 19, we learn about the treading of the winepress of the wrath of Almighty God. Revelation 14 actually gives us a little bit more information about that as far as the situation. Revelation 14:20, the winepress was trodden without the city, meaning outside of Jerusalem, and blood came out of the winepress, even unto the horses' bridles. So that means that it's like a very large amount, because from the ground up, it reached to the horses' bridles by the space of 1,600 furlongs. 1,600 furlongs is the distance from Basra to Jerusalem, where Jesus will actually meet the armies that are gathered at Armageddon. So for 1,600 furlongs up to the space of the horse's bridle, there's blood. How do we know that that's the space from Basra to Jerusalem? Isaiah 63. Verse 1, who is this that cometh from Edom? Okay. Well, in Genesis 25, which was the last chapter I went through in Genesis, we learned that the other name for Edom is Esau. Flip that around. The other name for Esau is Edom. He is the father of the Edomites. This originates from Genesis 25:30. Esau said to Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. So in Revelation 14, you have from point A to point B is a space of 1,600 furlongs. That is the distance from Basra to Jerusalem. That is the treading of the winepress of the wrath of God Almighty, and all of the blood coming out of the winepress because he is destroying that many people. Isaiah 63, who is this that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Basra? Why are they dyed? They're stained with blood. This that is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength. I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine fat? I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me, for I will tread them in mine anger and trample them in my fury. And their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and I shall stain my raiment. For the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. And I looked, and there was none to help, and I wondered that there was none to uphold. Therefore mine own arm brought salvation unto me, and my fury it upheld me. Jesus is the right arm of the Father, the right arm, the right hand, the hand that is his identity. He is the right arm of the Father. So when you're talking about in like the book of Acts and in the book of Hebrews, where it says that he's seated on the right hand of the Father, not at, Like, it's not a position, not a positional location of where Jesus is like physically located. It is a positional power that Jesus is the right arm of the Father. So when he's seated upon, he's fixed to, he's attached to the right arm of the Father. Jesus is the right arm of the Father. In Isaiah 63, mine own arm upheld me. Mine own arm brought salvation. That's what it's a reference to, is the arm of the Father is the Son, Jesus the Christ, who is physically treading the winepress of the wrath of God. I looked and there was none to help. I wondered that there was none to uphold. Therefore, mine own arm brought salvation unto me, and my fury it upheld me. I will tread down the people in mine anger and make them drunk in my fury, and I will bring down their strength to the earth. I will mention the loving kindnesses of the Lord and the praises of the Lord according to all the Lord hath bestowed on us, etc. Okay, so there's the explanation of Edom and Bozrah and the judgment of Jesus coming from Bozrah to Jerusalem, treading the winepress of the wrath of God for the space of 1,600 furlongs. That is what that is. So essentially what you have is him destroying Edom and then coming from Edom and trampling the winepress from Edom to Jerusalem, and then slaying all of the armies that stand against him in Jerusalem. That is the treading of the winepress of the wrath of God. It begins in Edom with Bozrah. One other chapter. The whole book of Obadiah is one chapter. And this relates specifically to the destruction of Edom. Why? Okay, well, we'll get to all of this and let you know in the prophecies why it's going to be destroyed, because that originates, the reasoning originates in the book of Genesis. So I'm letting you know where all of these prophecies wind up with this judgment. And then we'll go back to the origination to see why that's even going to happen. But the book of Obadiah deals specifically with the destruction of Edom. And what's interesting about this is Edom is one of three that escapes the hand of the Antichrist. Why? So that Jesus the Christ can judge them himself at the second coming. Daniel 11. We begin in verse 36 with the abomination of desolation. The king shall do according to his will. He shall exalt himself, magnify himself above every god, shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished, for that is determined shall be done. Okay, so there's a point in time reference to where we're at in the book of Daniel, chapter 11. When you go further into that, it talks about what exploits the Antichrist will be doing during the second half of the 70th week. And what you find in that chapter in Daniel 11 is that part of what he's doing at and after the midpoint of the 70th week is dividing the land of Israel for gain. He's spoiling it and sending Israel as strangers into foreign lands. He's dispersing them out of their own land. So not only will the temple be desolate, Israel itself will pretty much be desolate. And that's when the headquarters of the beast kingdom moved to Babylon. Ultimately, Babylon will be destroyed as last order of business before the second coming. But in the midpoint of the week, part and parcel with the abomination of desolation and the Jews fleeing is the scattering of Israel, is the dividing of Israel for gain, for spoil, and sending Israel into other countries like as captive, or other nations as captives. In verse 39, remember, abomination of desolation is in Daniel 11:36. Daniel 11:39. Thus shall he do in the most strongholds with a strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. He shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide the land for gain. Verse 40. And at that time of the end shall the king of the south push at him. The king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, with horsemen, with many ships. He shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. So he's conquering. He shall also enter into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab and the chief of the children of Ammon. Why is Edom escaping out of the hand of the Antichrist? Well, because Jesus the Christ is going to judge it himself. Obadiah 21 verses, one chapter. The vision of Obadiah. Thus saith the Lord God concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised. The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. If thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? If the grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes? Oh, are the things of Esau, because Esau was named Edom. And this, again, comes from Genesis 25:30. So the judgment of Edom, why? Well, Edom is Esau's lineage. Why would Esau's lineage be judged? That's what we're going to get to in Genesis. How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee, that they eat thy bread, have laid a wound under thee, there is none understanding in him. Shall I not in that day, saith the Lord, even destroy the wise men out of Edom, and understanding out of the mount of Esau? Yeah, the Antichrist didn't get to judge Edom, because the Lord's going to judge Edom. Thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed to the end, that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter. Who is this coming from Edom with dyed garments from Basra? So he starts with the judging of Edom, and then he treads the winepress from Basra to Jerusalem for the space of 1,600 furlongs. Why? For thy violence against thy brother Jacob. Shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. In the day that thou stoodest on the other side, in the day that the strangers carried away captive his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates, and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou wast one of them. And this goes back to the book of Daniel, the prophecy after the abomination of desolation, the spoiling of Jerusalem, and the dividing of the land for gain, and sending Israel that didn't flee, that wasn't part of the remnant, captive into strange lands. Edom was a party to that. This is a reference to Daniel 11's after the midpoint of the 70th week. Part of Edom's judgment comes from who Edom is and from what Edom does to his brother Jacob. Jacob, whom I have loved, Esau, whom I have hated. Why? Thou shouldest not have looked on that day of thy brother in the day that he became as a stranger, meaning carried off into strange lands, out of Judea. Neither shouldest thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction. Neither shouldest thou have spoken proudly in the day of distress. Thou shouldest not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. Yea, thou shouldest not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity, spoiling Jerusalem and dividing the land for gain. Again, Esau, Edom, had part in that. Neither shouldest thou have stood in the crossway to cut off those of his that did escape. Neither shouldest thou have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day of distress. For the day of the Lord is near upon all the heathen. As thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall return upon thine own head. This is Joel 3 also. Where are you, Joel? For behold, in those days and in that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, he's going to bring the captives back, those who were carted off into strange lands from Israel after the dividing of the land for gain. I will also bring all nations, Edom included, will bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, of whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. Thy reward shall return upon thine own head. For as ye have drunk upon mine holy mountain, so shall all the heathen drink continually. Yea, they shall drink, and they shall swallow down, and they shall be as though they had not been. But upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. And they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord hath spoken it. And they of the south shall possess the mount of Esau, they the plain of the Philistines, they shall possess the fields of Ephraim and the fields of Samaria, and Benjamin shall possess Gilead. The captivity of this host of the children of Israel shall possess that of the Canaanites, even unto Zarephath, and the captivity of Jerusalem, which is in Sepharad, shall possess the cities of the south. And saviors shall come up on Mount Zion to judge the mount of Esau, and the kingdom shall be the Lord's. Why would Esau, Edom, be judged? Why specifically by the Lord Jesus Christ? Well, that originates in Genesis 25. With the story of Esau and Jacob being born as twins. Esau was the elder of the two, Jacob the younger. Therefore, the birthright should have rightfully gone to the eldest son, Esau. And it would have, except for what? So let's start out by reading this passage in Genesis 25, then we'll go into chapter 26. This is Rachel, who was the mother of Jacob and Esau. Verse 23. The Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people. The elder shall serve the younger. That was what would come. Why? Why would the elder serve the younger rather than the younger serving the elder, as it should have been? When her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. The first came out red, all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. After that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them. He was 60. He was old. And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man, dwelling in tents. Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. I said Rachel. Not Rebecca. Sorry, Rachel's going to be Jacob's wife, not his mother. Sorry. And Jacob sawed pottage, and Esau came in from the field, and he was faint. Esau said to Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. So Esau is Edom. The Edomites are Esau's lineage. And Jacob said, sell me this day thy birthright. And Esau said, behold, I am at the point to die. What profit shall this birthright do to me? Jacob said, swear to me this day. And he swore unto him, and he sold his birthright to Jacob, which is how the prophecy that the Lord said to Rebekah, 2 nations are in thy womb, and the elder will serve the younger. Why? Because he just gave his birthright away for some stew, because he was famished. He was hungry. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils, and he did eat and drink, and rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. So what's the implication here of the despising of the birthright? Well, what would have been the birthright? That his line would have produced, would have taken hold of the promised land. It's the Abrahamic Covenant promises that came through Isaac that should have been part of the birthright that went to the eldest son, which included the promised land promise, the natural seed promise, and the spiritual seed promise. But he despised his birthright. So what does that mean? That he didn't care about dwelling in the promised land of his forefather Abraham. That he didn't care about having descendants that numbered as the sands of the sea and as the stars of the sky, innumerable. And that he didn't care the spiritual seed would come through the line of Isaac. He despised his birthright. And in so doing, essentially despised the Messiah that was promised to come through Abraham's line through Isaac. That's the implication of despising the birthright. So perhaps now you can see why Esau's line, essentially as a whole, was going to be judged, was going to be pit against the sons of Jacob. When we read through Obadiah, that's basically what they were being judged for, is taking part in the spoiling and the sending off captive, carting off captive into the nations, the ones who did not flee, and trying to stop the progression of those who did flee at the midpoint of the 70th week, for spoiling the land of Israel and taking pleasure in doing so. And so the Lord himself judged them, because Esau and Jacob were always going to be at war with one another. Well, Jacob is the 12 tribes of Jacob, is God's promised land. Is the inheritance that God promised the son, is Israel. So if the promised land promises are going to come through Isaac to a people group, and someone else hates that people group, regardless of, whether it's Isaac's own flesh and blood or not, they're obviously going to be up for judgment. It's the bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you type thing. Again, part of the Abrahamic Covenant promises. So that's why all of this was eventually going to happen. It was because the elder to whom the birthright and the blessing should have gone sold it. He despised it. And in so doing, the inference there is that he despised the coming of the Redeemer, who was promised to come through Abraham's line. The third part of the Abrahamic Covenant, the promised land promise, the natural seed promise, and the spiritual seed promise. So if you're despising all of that, ultimately, what does that mean you're despising? Jesus. Genesis 26:1. There was a famine in the land, beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. Isaac went unto Abimelech, the king of the Philistines, unto Gerar. So essentially, he's following in his father's footsteps in the land of, or in the famine that occurs. He's doing the same thing as his father did. He's going to a land that can help him, to a people who can help him. Unfortunately, he's going to do the same stupid thing his father did, and senselessly and needlessly. What was that? Telling them that his wife is his sister. Unnecessary. Why? Because his wife was good looking, and he thought that they would kill him to get to her. That wouldn't have happened. And that's a kind of a lack of faith scenario. And he winds up putting these people in a poor position because of that, because them thinking that Rebecca was his sister, not his wife, means that they thought that she was fair game. And that was not the situation. So he follows in his father's footsteps in more ways than one. And the reason that his father did that was a lack of faith that God would protect them. Not great. Shows that even the promised seed can make mistakes too. Shows that even though God has favor upon people, these people are still fallible. And that's the grace aspect of salvation. That is absolutely the grace aspect of salvation, is that we are not perfect. We are never going to be perfect. And the Old Testament is demonstrable of these people not being perfect, but they were still chosen. They were still set apart by God for a purpose, a great purpose in many cases, but they weren't perfect. They were fallible. And we see examples of that too. We aren't going to be perfect. And while we should strive to be that way, ultimately, until we are perfected, we're still going to fail. And the Old Testament, like I said, is full of people who, even though they were chosen and set apart and saved, ultimately, they still weren't perfect either. The Lord appeared unto him and said, So this is Isaac. The Lord appeared unto him and said, Go now down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with thee, and will bless thee, for unto thee and unto thy seed I will give all these countries. And I will perform the oath which I swear unto Abraham thy father. So he's talking about the promised land promise, and he is about to talk about the natural seed promise and the spiritual seed promise. So he's reaffirming the promises given to Abraham that would come through Isaac. So he says, don't worry, I'm going to take care of you. I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto thy seed all these countries. So there's promised land promise and the natural seed promise. And in thy seed shall all nations of the earth be blessed. There's your spiritual seed promise. Because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. Isaac dwelt in Gerar. And the men of the place asked him of his wife. And he said, She's my sister. For he feared to say, She is my wife, lest, said he, the men of the place should kill me for Rebekah, because she was fair to look upon. So again, it's kind of an example of a lack of faith in that scenario. God says, go here rather than here. So he goes here, and then he's like, but maybe I need to lie because maybe they're going to do something and they're going to kill me. But God told you to go there, so he's probably going to take care of you, and you probably don't need to lie. It came to pass when he had been there a long time that Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out at a window and saw, and behold, Isaac was sporting with Rebekah, his wife. Well, clearly he wouldn't be doing that with his sister, so what gives? Abimelech called Isaac and said, behold, of a surety, she is thy wife. And how saidst thou, she is my sister? And Isaac said, because I said, lest I die for her. Abimelech said, what is this that thou hast done to us? One of the people might lightly have lied with thy wife, and thou shouldest brought guiltiness upon us. Abimelech charged all his people, saying, he that touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. See, Abimelech would have had his back. It's like, why did you need to lie to us? We could have innocently made a mistake, and then surely that would have brought the wrath of God upon us. So why weren't you just honest from the get-go? Then Isaac sowed in that land and received in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. The man waxed great and went forward and grew until he became very great, for he had possession of flocks, possession of herds, a great store of servants, and the Philistines envied him. Because Gerar was in the land of the Philistines, Abimelech was the king of the Philistines. Yes, Abimelech, king of the Philistines. So he was dwelling in the land of Canaan among these people in this time of famine. And he enriched himself greatly to the point where the people of the land, the Philistines, envied him. For all the wells which his father's servants had digged in the days of Abraham his father, the Philistines had stopped them and filled them with earth. Abimelech said unto Isaac, go from us, for thou art much mightier than we. So all the wells that he was using, the Philistines stopped them from functioning by filling them in an attempt to stop him from being so great and mighty, because they envied him. So Abimelech said, yeah, time for you to go. Abimelech said, said unto Isaac, go from us, for thou art much mightier than we. Isaac departed thence and pitched his tent in the valley of Gerar and dwelt there. Isaac digged again the wells of water which they had digged in the days of Abraham his father, for the Philistines had stopped them after the death of Abraham. He called their names after the names by which his father had called them. Isaac's servants digged in the valley and found there a well of springing water, or running water. And the herdsmen of Gerar did strive with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, the water is ours. He called the name of the well Esau, because they strove with him. They digged another well, strove for that also, and he called the name of it Sitnah. He removed from thence and digged another well, and for that they strove not, and he called the name of it Rehoboth, and said, for now the Lord hath made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. And he went up from thence to Beersheba. There is an original well in Beersheba from Abraham. The Lord appeared unto him the same night and said, I am the God of Abraham, thy father. Fear not, for I am with thee, will bless thee, and will multiply thy seed for my servant Abraham's sake. He builded an altar there and called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants digged a well. Then Abimelech went to him from Gerar, and another name, one of his friends, Phicol, the chief captain of the army. Isaac said unto them, wherefore come ye to me, seeing ye hate me, and ye have sent me away from you? They said, we saw certainly that the Lord was with thee, and we said, let there be now an oath between us, even betwixt us and thee, and let us make a covenant with thee. So Abimelech, who was the king of the Philistines, originally did that with Abraham also, and now he's doing it with his son Isaac, seeing surely that the Lord is with them, so let's not strive against one another. Let's have peace. Let's make an oath, a covenant between two people to have peace. Thou wilt do us no hurt, as we have not touched thee, and as we have done unto thee nothing but good, and have sent thee away in peace. Thou art now the blessed of the Lord. He made a feast, and they did eat and drink, and they rose up betimes in the morning, and sware one to another. Isaac sent them away, and they departed from him in peace. So there was peace between the king of the Philistines and Isaac, who was the promised seed of the Lord. It came to pass the same day that Isaac's servants came and told them concerning the well which they had digged, and said unto him, we have found water. So obviously that covenant, that oath, that peace between the two was favorable. He called it Sheba. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba unto this day. Esau was 40 years old when he took to wife Judith, the daughter of Beri the Hittite, and Bashemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. Okay, so Esau, who's Jacob's descendant, we see is marrying Hittite women. That is going to be of consequence. Why? Well, because when we go back to the story of Abraham and Sarah, when Abraham sent his servant to find a wife for his son Isaac, the promised seed, what was he specifically told? Go to the land of my family. Don't go into a foreign land and pick a foreigner wife, a Canaanite woman, or really what that means is a disbelieving woman. Pick someone that's from my family who's going to have the same belief system as we do, believe in the God of Israel. So it's important that what we see here, that same command is going to be given for the wife of Jacob. Don't find a strange Canaanite woman who's going to essentially, I don't want to say in fact, but who's going to lead astray the belief system here, the belief in the God of Israel. Find a God of Israel fearing woman for him, just like the command was to do for Isaac. That is going to be the command to do for Jacob. Esau did not follow that same directive. He's marrying foreign women who are going to pollute the belief system. This is the second place. We see Esau getting off course. The first was selling his birthright, despising his birthright, and selling it to Jacob for some food. And the second is marrying outside of the kind of the ordinance that was given to keep it in the family. The equally yoked conversation is basically what that means. It's not to be unequally yoked. Is to marry someone who has the same belief system as you, a God-fearing woman. And that would not have been the case if marrying outside of the Hebrews, outside of the lineage of Abraham, Isaac, etc., outside the family. So it's the whole unequally yoked conversation. We see Esau getting involved in that right here in Genesis 26. So this is the second thing that's not good going for Esau. So we go to chapter 27. It says, it came to pass that when Isaac was old and his eyes were dim so that he could not see, he called Esau, his eldest son, and said unto him, my son. And he said unto him, behold, here I am. Okay. Well, who should have gotten the birthright and the blessing? The elder son. But we know that that is not going to be the case because he sold that to the younger. So there is going to be a situation that brings it about so that God's promise to Rebekah was fulfilled, that the elder would serve the younger. And what we're seeing here in 27, yes, it is deceptive. It is deceptive on the part of Rebekah to do this. But ultimately, why did this happen? Because the Lord said this is what was going to happen. So she was doing something in a way to bring about what the Lord had told her was going to happen. Was it deceptive toward Isaac? Mm-hmm. And it's a fulfillment of what the Lord said was going to happen, that the elder would serve the younger. How does that happen? That the younger receives the birthright and the blessing. Now, he already received the birthright because the brother had given it to him for the food. How the blessing gets placed on the younger rather than the elder, as it should have, is going to be managed by Rebekah. And this is going to be consistent with what we learn about the prophecy that the Lord gave her, that the elder would serve the younger from Genesis 25. So she's the one that's managing the bringing about of that in accordance with what the Lord had said. Again, was it deceptive to Isaac? Yes. Let's not dispute that. But this is the facilitation of the Lord's promise. And this, again, goes to Genesis 25:23. The Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. The one people shall be stronger than the other people. The elder shall serve the younger. How does that go about, or how is that going to be brought to pass? Well, here in Genesis 27. It came to pass that when Isaac was old, his eyes were dim so that he could not see. He called Esau his eldest son and said unto him, my son. He said unto him, behold, here I am. So this is the one who should have received the blessing. He said, behold, now I am old. I know not the day of my death. Now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver, thy bow, and go out into the field and take me some venison. because Isaac favored Esau because he loved his venison, and Rebekah favored Jacob. And make me savory meat such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die. So he said, he was the favored one of Isaac because Isaac loved his food. So as like kind of the last thing before Isaac passes away is he wanted to enjoy the thing that he loved the most. And that was the food from his favored son, so that he could bless him before he passed away. So like, give me this one last thing and then I'll bless you. And then, that'll be that. But he's not going to bless the elder first. Rebekah heard when Isaac spake to Esau his son, and Esau went into the field to hunt for venison and to bring it. And Rebekah spake unto Jacob her son, who she favored, saying, Behold, I heard thy father speak unto Esau thy brother, saying, Bring me venison and make me savory meat, that I may eat and bless thee before the Lord before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command thee. Now go to the flock and fetch me from thence 2 good kids of the goat, and I will make them savory meat for thy father, such as he loveth. And thou shalt bring it to thy father, that he may eat, and that he may bless thee before his death. Why? Because she had been told that the elder would serve the younger. Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, Behold, Esau is my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. My father peradventure will feel me, and I shall seem to him as a deceiver. I shall bring a curse upon me, not a blessing. And his mother said unto him, Upon me be thy curse. My son, only obey my voice and go fetch me them. So she was going to take whatever punishment was due. This is the way it was going to be, and she was going to make sure that it happened this way. He went and fetched and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory meat such as his father loved. Rebekah took goodly raiment of her eldest son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them upon Jacob her younger son. She put the skins of the kids of the goats upon his hands and upon the smooth of his neck, and she gave the savory meat and the bread which she had prepared into the hands of her son Jacob. He came unto his father and said, My father, and he said, Here am I. Who art thou, my son? And Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau thy firstborn. I have done according as thou badest me. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat of my venison, that thy soul may bless me. Isaac said unto his son, How is it that thou hast found it so quickly, my son? And he said, Because the Lord thy God brought it to me. So yes, there's deception here. There is deception. Isaac said unto Jacob, Come near, I pray thee, that I may feel thee, my son, whether thou be my very son Esau or not. Jacob went near unto Isaac his father, and he felt him and said, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. So why are they doing this? Because Esau despised his birthright. The birthright included the 3 parts of the Abrahamic Covenant promises: the promised land promise, the natural seed promise, and the spiritual seed promise. Esau essentially despised Christ. So in knowing that the blessing was going to go to someone who sold his birthright for despising what it was, for not wanting it, not caring about it in the least, Rebekah facilitated that would go to her son Jacob, who was a God-fearing man. So yes, they made something happen that wouldn't have otherwise happened to allow this to occur, to allow the prophecy to come to pass where the elder would serve the younger, and that the blessing would come on someone who was spiritually discerning and God-fearing, essentially. Esau was not that person. Jacob was. So that's why all of this happened, to bring about the end goal that the Lord had in mind. And this is the way they chose to do it. He discerned him not because his hands were hairy as his brother Esau's hands, so he blessed him. And he said, Art thou my very son Esau? And he said, I am. So Jacob knew. I mean, he kind of knew. Like, he couldn't see, but he knew it was Jacob's voice. So he was feeling around to try to validate that it was Esau, even though he knew it wasn't. I mean, yes, it's deceiving, but he knew it wasn't. Or he at least had asked enough questions to try to discern whether or not it was. He couldn't see, but he knew that it was Jacob's voice. And Jacob kept saying, nope, I'm Esau, nope, I'm Esau. And he kept trying to feel around for the hairy, Esau. And so he was by touch validating that it was who he thought was Esau. But again, by hearing, it wasn't Esau. He said, bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. He brought it near to him, and he did eat, and he brought him wine, and he drank. His father Isaac said unto him, come near now and kiss me, my son, which is why they put it on his neck also, not just his hands and his arms. He came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his raiment, which was Esau's raiment that they had put on Jacob, and blessed him and said, see, the smell of my son is as the smell of the field which the Lord hath blessed. Therefore God give thee of the dew of the heaven, the fatness of the earth, and the plenty of the corn and wine. Let people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee. So this is going to be the elder serving the younger, because Israel is going to sit atop the nations eventually. The Lord be Lord over thy brethren, the elder serve the younger, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be everyone that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blesseth thee. So he's blessing him with the Abrahamic Covenant promises given to Isaac, given to Abraham, passed on to Isaac, and now being passed on to Jacob. It came to pass, as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing Jacob, that Jacob was yet scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. He also had made savory meat and brought it unto his father, and said unto his father, let my father arise and eat of his son's venison, that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac his father said unto him, who art thou? And he said, I am thy son, thy firstborn Esau. Isaac trembled very exceedingly and said, where is he that hath taken the venison and brought it to me, and have eaten of all before thou camest, and have blessed him? Yea, and he shall be blessed. When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry, and said unto his father, bless me, even me also, O my father. He said, thy brother came with subtlety, and hath taken away thy blessing. He came with deceit, and has taken away thy blessing. He said, is not he rightly named Jacob, for he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, but he didn't take it away. He received what was freely given by Esau. So he didn't take it away. It was freely given. And behold, now he had taken away my blessing. He didn't take the blessing, it was freely given. But it was freely given upon a false pretense. He has said, hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? So he's like, you gave away what you should have given to me, but can you give me something too? Isaac answered and said unto Esau, behold, I have made him thy lord, and all his brethren I have given to him for servants. And with corn and wine have I sustained him. What shall I do now unto thee, my son? So he's like, I gave him enrichment as a blessing, and the Abrahamic Covenant promises we pass down through him. So, what do I have left to give you? Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. Esau lifted up his voice and wept. He said, please give me something. Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. By thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. It shall come to pass, when thou shalt have dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. Yep, because he blessed him with the blessing that, he's going to live, and he's going to essentially live by the sword, and he's going to always be in deference to his younger brother. He's going to serve his younger brother, and essentially his lineage is going to come to an end because he hates his brother so much that he's going to enjoy seeing his brother brought low and even participate in it, which is the whole pretense of Obadiah. That when given the opportunity, Esau revels in and assists with the bringing low of Jacob. And then the Lord comes back and judges Edom for that. So Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. Well, yeah, because that's not much of a blessing, is it? It's more of a prophecy of how your lineages are going to stack up against one another. And Esau, sorry, but you're getting the short end of that stick. Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. These words of Esau, her elder son, were told to Rebekah. She sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said unto him, Behold, thy brother Esau, as touching thee, doth comfort him, purposing to kill thee. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice, and arise, flee thou to Laban, my brother, in Haran, and tarry with him a few days until thy brother's fury turn away, until thy brother's anger turn away from thee, and he forget that which thou hast done to him. Then I will send and fetch thee from thence. Why should I be deprived also of you both in one day? Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob take a wife of the daughters of Heth, such as these which are the daughters of the land, what good shall my life do me? So Rebekah said, I'm going to lose both my sons because one's going to try to kill the other, one's going away, and the other's going to try to kill the other. So I'm like, they're kind of both lost to me. Can you do me a solid and give me something? Can you promise me that Jacob will not marry a Canaanite woman? That the equally yoked conversation, that he will find someone who believes in God to procreate with, to this blessing, this birthright, all of this stuff. So can you do me something here? Give me some kind of reassurance that Jacob's not going to destroy his lineage by marrying outside of it, by marrying heathen women like Esau did, Esau and his Hittites. Chapter 28, Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said unto him, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Padanaram, to the house of Bethuel, my mother's father, and take thee a wife from thence of the daughters of Laban, my mother's brother. God Almighty bless thee and make thee fruitful and multiply thee, that thou mayest be a multitude of people. So again, we're referencing the Abrahamic Covenant. So he's like, keep it in the family so that you can marry someone, the distant family now, but keep it in the God-fearing family, the equally yoked conversation. I'm going to bless you, make you fruitful and multiply thee, going to make you a great nation. Give thee the blessing of Abraham to thee and to thy seed with thee, that thou mayest inherit the land wherein thou art a stranger, which God gave unto Abraham. So now you have the Abrahamic covenant promises being fully passed from Isaac to Jacob. Isaac sent away Jacob. He went unto Laban, the son of Bethuel, the Syrian, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob and Esau's mother. When Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padanaram, to take him away from thence, and that as he blessed and gave him a charge, saying, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan, that Jacob obeyed his father and his mother and was gone. Esau, seeing that the daughters of Canaan pleased not Isaac his father, then went Esau unto Ishmael, who was not the promised seed, he was Isaac's brother, and took unto him the wives which he had, Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebajoth, to be his wife. And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. So you have Esau took to wife a Hittite, 2 Hittite women, saw that his father didn't like that kind of thing going on with, didn't want them to marry Canaanite women. So he went to Ishmael, who has a line that hates Isaac, hates Jacob's line. The Ishmaelites and the Israelites are, pitted against each other. That was the son against son, Ishmael being the seed, the union of Abraham and Sarah's Hagar. Sorry, Abraham and Hagar bore Ishmael because Sarah was barren and she didn't think that Abraham was going to get a promised seed out of her. So they tried to subvert the will of God and kind of do it on their own. So Ishmael was the consequence of that. And God said, no, Isaac is the promised seed, not Ishmael. So because of this union that never should have happened by trying to take things into your own hands, now the Hagarenes and the Ishmaelites are going to be set against God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and against Israel ultimately. So you have from these unions, these unions that never should have happened, Israel gets more enemies. So Esau, the Edomites, are going to be pitted against the Israelites because of this stuff that we're reading in Genesis, the selling of the birthright, the deception and the blessing, all of that going to Jacob, and Esau like hating Jacob and wanting to kill him because of it. So your Edomites and your Israelites are going to be pitted against one another. So the Ishmaelites and the Hagarenes pitted against the Israelites. Edomites go to Ishmaelites to find wives and procreate with. All of these things are still against Israelites. So hopefully that made sense. So he's like, you don't want me to take daughters from land of Canaan. So I'm going to go to Ishmael, who already has a beef with Jacob, who will become Israel. So I'm going to kind of further that beef by going to him and marrying and procreating. So Esau went to Ishmael, took wives of the Ishmaelites, essentially. Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. He lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night because the sun was set. And he took the stones of that place and put them for his pillows and lay down in that place to sleep. He dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. This is Jacob's ladder, or what's referred to as Jacob's ladder, I guess. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land whereon thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south. And in thee and in thy seed shall all families of the earth be blessed. So again, a restatement of the three components of the Abraham covenant promises: promised land promise, natural seed promise, spiritual seed promise. So this has been conferred upon Abraham, to Isaac, and now to Jacob. And the Lord is reaffirming this. And behold, I am with thee, and will keep thee in all places whither thou goest, and will bring thee again into this land. For I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken to thee of. And Jacob awaked out of his sleep, and he said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. He was afraid and said, how dreadful is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. Jacob rose up early in the morning and took the stone that he had put for his pillows and set it up for a pillar and poured oil upon the top of it and called the name of the place Bethel. But the name of that city was called Luz at the first, or Luz at the first. Jacob vowed a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God. And this stone which I have set for a pillar shall be God's house. And of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the 10th unto thee. So I'm going to stop there. When next we meet again, we're going to discuss the birth of the 12 tribes of Israel, starting in chapter 29. So if you guys have any questions, comments, or feedback, let me know. Thank you for being here and or watching this after the fact. Have a great day.